This video is for Assessment 3, Leadership and Social Impact. So we've been through the first two assessments. Your first all of these are nested in each other. So your first assessment was your case study proposal, and then you used your case studies in your group work to actually then contribute to the learning in your action learning sets. Now it's the third assessment where you're actually going to report your case study. So you've put your proposal in at the beginning, you put a leadership learning goal, you have been researching and investigating that case over the session and sharing with your peers, and now it's time to finalise the case and submit, which is due on the 15th of October. So this is worth 35%, so it's still a significant amount, 2,500 words. I know that some of you may submit 3,000 words, and at this stage that's okay. Okay? So in Assessment 1, as I said, you identified your case study area, and during the session you've collaborated with your ALS on different models and you've reflected, and now you should be continuing to find and research your case. So in this assessment you're asked to state your learning goal and provide a context for the organisation, movement or association which is working in social change and or creating social impact. So this will be a summary from Assessment 1. Then write a summary of the literature and contemporary media on this case, which includes the current leadership issues and challenges. So we'll talk about this literature and contemporary media review on the next slide. And from your understanding of theory on social impact and leadership practice and your learning and reflection with your ALS, you'll now identify, critically analyse and discuss the social change leadership models that are being employed in this case. Write a reflection and conclusion which clearly states, first of all, how you perceive you achieved your learning goal. 2, well-justified models of social impact for your professional practice that respond to your learning style, identified in Assessment 2. And we'll unpack that as well. So they're the tasks. So review of the literature and media. So this is a traditional general review of literature on your topic area of social change leadership. So I'm expecting you to read much more widely than your readings because you're investigating a case. So this subject is doing two things. First of all, it's developing your research skills. So research is a really important part of academic practice. And secondly, it's developing your action learning skills, your leadership skills when it comes to working collaboratively and collectively in group situations. So a literature review may also include what I call grey literature or media from newspapers and media like The Conversation, The Guardian, ABC News, etc. Make sure this is not fake news or unverified news. Most of these sources, particularly The Conversation and The Guardian, are written by academics or leading scholars or commentators in the particular area, and their information has been researched and is verified and justified. And you can also go to internet sources about the case, e.g. Social Ventures, and I've put a link in there to Social Ventures, but there's lots of resources. The library has some guides, and also by this stage you should have found most of the sources for your literature review and most of the sources that explicate or explain further your case. So the library has some excellent guides, and there are librarians available to assist you with your searching. This video is very helpful, so please watch it. It's a literature review and overview, so this will help you as well. Now, I'm including this now because you can go back and you can actually look at what you've done so far, and then you can actually be much more systematic in how you've actually gone about your literature review. You've got a month to actually look at this, which is significant. I believe is sufficient time for you to be able to go back and then make sure that your all the stuff that you've researched is now put into that literature review. So unpacking the assessment further, so you're going to critically analyse and discuss the social change leadership models that are employed in this case. So throughout the subject and in your action learning groups, you will discuss different models of social change leadership, and you will also look back on other approaches to leadership that you've studied in previous leadership subjects, if you've done previous leadership subjects, and those developed in your action learning group. Now, I know many of you, well, most of you have done leadership subjects before. I think there might be only one student in this subject that may not have, but working with your peers in your action learning sets, you've been exposed to other leadership models. And you will investigate the leadership in your case, finding the key concepts and practices that relate to one or more model or approach. So you may use the model or hybrid which your group developed as long as you justify it. But note, this is not to be just a rehash of your group's findings. I want this to be more. So it must be applied to your case. So the feedback that you get on your group assessment will help you to move to that level. And how I look upon this is, many of you in your group reports and presentations looked at the theory, looked at how your cases applied to the theory, so X equaled Y. This is the next step going to the Z or the Z. So X equals Y, but this is Y. You know, X equals Y, so you've confirmed a particular theory, and then you move on to Z. So what? And then now what? So you need to then synthesize what this means for you. So it's that synthesis which is so important, okay? So you're moving on to the so what and the now what in your reflection at the end. So reflection and conclusion, so this is tied up together. So you reflect and conclude, and there's two areas: how you perceive you achieved your learning goal, your view as to the current leadership issues and challenges in your social impact area, and C, not B, a well-justified model of social impact leadership for your professional practice that responds to your learning style identified in Assessment 2. So in Assessment 2 you did a reflection and you talked about how you learn. So your approach to learning, not so much a style but an approach to learning. So what have you identified as your learning approach, and how do you know that you have reached your learning goal? So this reflection would include how you learned, as I said, in your action learning set. How does your literature review succinctly identify the key challenges in your case? So that's your view as to the current leadership issues and challenges in your social impact area. So this is a conclusion of your findings. What model or framework practices will you use to support leading for social impact that align with your learning approach and within your own organisational context or work or practice? Some of you work in the community, some of you I think are retired. Whichever area you work in as a volunteer or a paid person or your own organisation, okay? So what models would you apply in the future? And this can be contextual as well, okay? Always look back to the marking rubric, work to this. It's very clear, each of the areas. So we've got the learning goal, which is your first area, the review of literature and media. Make sure that you are using APA 7 referencing. I shouldn't have to remind anyone of that at this stage. The critical analysis of the social change leadership models employed in this case, and then your reflection and conclusion, which really demonstrates synthesis of literature and learning. Okay, so I want you to see that you synthesize these. So look at each of the cells in this rubric to make sure that you are working to. I know most of you in this subject are aiming for a high distinction, so have a look at that as a guide and see whether you can fit into that. Look, as I've always said though, a credit is always, a high credit or a credit is always exceptional as well, particularly at master's level. So there's the library guide, and look at that video as well. Post questions to the assessment forum, but also email me offline as well, and if you want to have a chat about this, I'm happy to have a chat as well. We can set up a Zoom meeting. Okay, so I hope you enjoy doing this final assessment. It's the culmination of this subject, and for some of you, culmination of your learning. Cheers.